Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kim, and the crew at We Teach Me. It's a great honour to come along today and give you a little bit about history about Archiblocks, what we've done, and some lessons we've learnt along the way. So this evening I'll be running through a bit of an introduction about myself, talking through how we built our brand at Archiblocks, looking at diversification of the product ranges that we've put together at Archiblocks, looking at some calamities we've had along the way and some of the success. I'm a fourth generation builder, a second generation architect. I say I'm a first generation manufacturer, but the sheds we're sitting in here tonight, my great grandfather used, and he used to manufacture windows back in the 1910s and 1920s and 1930s. I've never been in here. My old lady would love to know that I've actually visited the factory here. A little bit about Archiblocks and a little bit about myself. So I studied architecture at Melbourne University. My old man was an architect. I've always wanted to be an architect. I had heaps of passion towards architecture design and just finding better ways through good details. Finishing up university at Melbourne, I was lucky enough to be employed by a firm in Kuala Lumpur. Coming into this firm, I always had this perception that architects, all we did was design amazing buildings. Unfortunately, this firm I worked with, they were extraordinarily efficient in the way they ran a business of architecture. I was lucky. I designed 10, 20, 30, 50-storey towers that were never built. I designed a variety of different assorted houses that were never built. I designed exhibition buildings that were never built. There was lots of talk in Malaysia at the time. I left as a result of the economic crisis that hit Asia in the late 1990s and came back to Melbourne working on Federation Square. So I've gone from an amazingly efficiently run architectural business into a chaotic, creative studio that was designing and building Federation Square, part of the Lab Architectural Studios. It was such a chaotic time of architecture that I was experiencing that at one stage I was working on the delivery team, so we're doing the construction documentation, so the construction liaising, and I processed the 15,000th variation on the job, which is extraordinary for any commercial project. But it gave me an insight into the creativity behind architecture, which I really had a passion towards. I then, a couple of years later, I jumped forward and I was playing cricket in India with my brother, another massive passion of mine, India and cricket. And over there, my brother had joined the family building company called McCorkell Constructions. And a night out over there, we decided that the brothers should join together after a successful day on the middle of the pitch, where we probably hit 5 or 10 runs together. We then decided that I should join McCorkell Constructions on my return back to Australia, which I did. Left Federation Square, jumped into a commercial building company which had been established for 70 years at the time. An architect and a builder working with an older brother's business that he'd been entrenched within for 10 years. Worked really well for quite a while. As an architect, I had a turbocharged learning experience on how to actually build, how to manage building, how to estimate, how to procure, basically the ins and outs of a building trade. So from an architectural perspective, I was extraordinarily lucky to actually get those learnings and also work in a very well-established business as a director, and having lots of learnings along the way of how to actually run and manage a business from a director's point of view. But 5 years on, an architect and a builder, a younger brother and an older brother, I decided there was only so many arguments that I could have and potentially lose. So having a chat to a friend who was leaving his business called Atelier Techne to head overseas, I joined up with his business partner. And then for the next 4 years, I ran a business called Techne Architects. Absolutely loved architecture. So for me, this is one of my biggest passions, was getting back into architecture and running what became and has become a very successful architectural business. In the first 2 years, we took the business from 1.5 staff members to over 20. We had a diversification of products ranging from single residences through to multi-res, and a lot of commercial and a lot of hospitality. But it was something I really loved doing, the architecture, but I really disliked being on the other side of the fence from the builder. And the amount of times I'd sit down with builders, knowing exactly what process I'd gone through to get to a price, knowing exactly what the price should be, and then having the arguments over, well, how did you arrive at this type of figure, really, really annoyed me. So after 2 or 3 years working with Techne, I started up a second business whilst at Techne called Archiblocks. Because this is where my passion really has been and was. I had the opportunity of not only being an architect, but also being a builder at the same time. I really enjoyed the opportunity of taking ownership of a project from the initial contact with client through the handing over the keys and completion. So it was a really good way from an architectural experience of looking into a business and finding a way that we could manage and be part of the whole client journey. We looked at prefabrication as being a methodology that would work really well for us. Back in 2012, I remember seeing this graph that's sitting on the top left-hand side that shows the construction productivity dropping off over the years over a manufacturing productivity. And it was amazing the results that you start, really drilling into and understanding exactly the opportunities for getting better traction or better market presence or better costings for clients. Being an architect, being exposed to the volume housing and the vanilla nature of the housing market, we really believed that we could make a difference in creating a product that we could take to market and sell to clients. And in a way that we could do that was through prefabrication. Really early on in Australia, prefabrication became quite a staple back in the gold rush eras of the 1850s. But right through to modern days, prefabrication has been used in Australia, but on a really small percentage. And so when we looked overseas at other countries and the take-up of prefabrication, Australia had a really, really low percentage to take. One of our biggest barriers as prefabrication was the perception of the prefabricated buildings in the general public. So when we started the business in 2012, a lot of the clients we had at the time had to take a lot of convincing as to why and how and why they should buy an architecturally designed prefabricated house when the general market population looked at the Donner type of scenario that was prevalent throughout the mining industry. So we thought, well, that's a really good way of then creating a good product that people would take some traction to and then create really good stories. And I think this is something that we've done really well at Archiblocks, is create stories around our products that we've delivered. This particular project is a carbon positive house that we designed 3 or 4 years ago. We teamed up with the Meet the New Joneses, put it on at a really good event for Sustainable Design Awards at City Square. And we got the right traction, the right marketing and the right story behind what we do. And it's also a massive passion that we have at Archiblocks is through sustainability. But I think generally sustainability as an architect is something that we do every day. So even though it's something that we really preach at Archiblocks, it's something that we ingrained in everything we do. These stories and was a way of then building our brand. And so what we've looked at as a business, well, what are other stories we can use in our business to help build our brand? Being a kid growing up in Melbourne, we used to do lots of camping. And one of the things as a kid growing up in Melbourne I've really loved is the bush. One thing I've always loved about the bush is the nature, the First Nation people's relationship with that bush. So one of the things we've done recently is setting up our reconciliation action plan, which to me is a no-brainer for any Australian business that you can really then start giving back to the First Nation people. From Archiblocks' perspective, it starts giving us really good insights into the different nations around Victoria and New South Wales, so that when we give stories to our clients, we can pass on the stories from the First Nation people and start really layering up information for clients and their knowledge and their appreciation of the land that they then become caretakers on. As an architect, sustainability, looking at different schemes, like carbon neutral schemes that we can then start putting back into the environment, again, is a really good story that we have in the business. And then also different associations that you become members on. For example, I currently sit on the Prefab Oz board director, so it's a national organisation. I also sit on part of the Father Bobnut Foundation. And so again, these are just really good avenues that we use as a business to start promoting the different ideologies we have and the beliefs that we have. So what these things give us is good PR, and what these PR gives us is good access to clients. So as a business, we've really thought about the stories that we do, we've really thought about the products that we've developed, we've really thought about the projects that the organisations that we're associated with. And what that leads to is lots of then opportunities to then promote and cross-promote and really use Archiblock as a social media platform to then build our client base. So as a business who sells houses and sells commercial buildings, we would generate 80% of our leads come through our social media feeds. And it's something, we look at the success of a business, it's something that I'm really proud of at the moment. We're the most followed architectural business in Australia on Instagram and social media pages, and it's something that we do really push heavily. And that gets me into my wife, who works with me and runs all of our social media. And so collaboratively, we do really run Archiblocks. The other thing we use as part of building our brand is the testimonial page with clients. We've made lots of mistakes as a business along our journey, and if it's something that we don't learn, it's something that we don't learn about every time, then it's something when we can't grow as a business. But one thing that we really appreciate and we really gain a lot of traction for future clients is through our testimonials and the way that we can then promote and cross-promote through our brands. Diversification is something we are massive fans of at Archiblocks as well. I really like diversification in what we do from not only in product offerings but also in innovation, because it keeps a lot of interest in staff and fellow colleagues within the business. And it's also making us always think about better ways of doing it. In 2014, we set up another business called Backyard Room. So Backyard Room was a little backyard offices, as the name says. And it basically set up in a way that we use our internet site for clients to jump on board and basically purchase off the internet site. So it's looking at a different client journey for clients and then trying to remove a lot of the sales infrastructure and the sales necessity that we have through Archiblocks, and so giving a lot of the buying power back to the client. We set up another business called Birdie Workshop. So this is looking at how do we vertically integrate different businesses under the same umbrella. A business like Archiblocks, with the amount of product we push through the facility, it makes it really enticing for us to look at different businesses that we can tie into our own. And part of that, my belief is, if we can shorten the time frame for the manufacture of different products, it assists us as a business to push product projects outside the facility doors quicker. So as a business like Archiblocks, we run through about 15,000 square metres of land out at Laverton. Every square metre of land is worth $1 each month. So the more turnover we get from the products outside the doors in the facility, the better it is from a business revenue point of view. Innovation in our business happens every 3 months. So I think over our journey of five and a half years, we've rechanged the way that we design and manufacture our builders every 3 months. And as a result of that, we've really taken a time frame from manufacturing our buildings 6 years ago would take circa 5 to 6 months. These days we develop buildings and we manufacture buildings in around 6 to 8 weeks for a standard build. And innovation to us also is the opportunity of, again, keeping staff engagement in the business and keeping lessons learnt to be continuously taken throughout the business. But we've had calamities along the way, I think, as every business has had. And again, looking at the calamities and looking at the opportunities to get better is one of those big things. We had a manufacturing plant down in Wonthaggi in Gippsland up until 2016. Up until 2016, for the first 4 years of the business, as the complexity of the projects increased, also the skill level within the business increased. In 2016, I had an opportunity of taking over some land, a facility down in Laverton, and I looked at that as an opportunity, being a Melbourne-based business, head office is in Melbourne, that I could take my manufacturing facility from Wonthaggi and bring it down to Melbourne. It was proved to be an extraordinarily difficult time in the business because all of my manufacturing side of the business, out of 60 people, I had one person follow the business. And so we had to retool throughout the whole business. And at the same time, projects became more complex. The geography of the landing of these projects became more complex. So it was an extraordinarily difficult 18 months, 16 months. And to add to those calamities, we also then entered into a commercial market. So this is our first large commercial project we did. It was part of the railway, the level crossing removal. So this was the signal control centre that we did for Lend-Lease and CPD, so two tier 1 contractors. We went in a little bit naively onto this project. We did in such a way that we didn't realise we'd signed up to a project that if it wasn't delivered on the day of final completion, that we were exposed to $6 million a day in third-party damages. So a business like ours, or any business, that's just an extraordinary process to go through. During the process of manufacturing the So in about 2 months into this process, I realised we need a hand. And so I basically spoke to one of the commercial manager or directors at Lend-Lease, basically went out hand in hand and gave them 4 demands that I needed. And if I didn't reach these 4 things, they wouldn't have a railway infrastructure project that was worth $1.7 billion that would not come online because we were a $4 million part of that process. And so really, thankfully, they saw the dilemma that we were in. They took our payment terms from 45 days end of month down to 15 days. They gave us all this assistance that we needed, and we basically left the project, completed it on time. We didn't lose any money, and it was such an amazing effort from a business like Archiblocks, who basically worked in domestic prefabrication to deliver a basic 600 square metre computer. So my lessons there is be really well aware of what you're trying to do and don't chase dollars. But we can't achieve all these things without the right structure and the right team behind us. One of the things mentioned earlier this evening was, you making use of business organisations like Entrepreneurs Organisation. I'm a massive fan of learning, and I think any business owner, you have to be aware of learning. So we're only as good as the staff that we have on the ground or the colleagues that we work alongside with. And part of our colleagues and part of what we work with and the community that we create is all about, who are the type of person we work with, people we work with. And part of that is the creation of the values that we all work towards. And as a result of the colleagues that we have, then Archiblocks has had, part of the colleagues we have, the clients we work through and the suppliers that we work alongside, Archiblocks has had some amazing stories. We've had buildings installed as far north as Byron Bay. We've had a scattering of buildings that have built right along the coastline of New South Wales, right around Victoria, and right across to South Australia. We've got happy clients, we've got disgruntled clients, we've got raving clients, we've got amazing people that we work with day in, day out. We always look for different opportunities and different ways of doing things. But at the end of the day, we create beautiful spaces, we try and simplify life, and we try and create moments of people to thrive in. And that's one of the things I think we've done well at Archiblocks, is to create, we like to see the movement of simplicity and spaces to thrive. And there's been recognised not through our own community, but also internationally. As an architect, I'm probably really proud of one of the awards we got given in 2016 was voted the 3rd most innovative architectural firm by Fast Company over in the States. As a builder, I'm most proud of the construction award that we won earlier this year for the signal control centre that we built for the City of Caulfield to Dandenong Line. And I like to think that just those 2 awards there alone have really signified at Archiblocks that we've really managed to find relevance in both the architectural field and the construction field. Thank you.